You wake up, and before your eyes are even open, 4 words fall out of your mouth at the ceiling. I don't want to. You weren't trying. The words just showed up, in order, grammar and all, before you'd had a single conscious thought. Here's the thing nobody really stops to think about. You'll say around 16,000 words today, and you won't work for a single one of them. Now rewind, a long way back. Out in tall grass stands a real ancestor of yours, your great-great-great, a few thousand times over, who wanted to say something just as badly as you do this morning. And couldn't. The sound wasn't there yet. The wiring was only half built. So when did that change? When did some creature open its mouth and for the first time mean one exact thing? The answer is older and messier than you'd guess. We're going to walk through every clue today, but first you need to understand one frustrating thing about this whole question. Language doesn't fossilize. Think about it. A footprint pressed into volcanic ash can last 3.5 million years. We actually have those. A skull lasts even longer. But a spoken word? A word is a vibration in the air. It exists for half a second, and then it's gone for good. And the parts that made it, the tongue, the lungs, the brain, the vocal cords, are all soft tissue. They rot away within weeks. So there are no recordings. No first sentence scratched into a rock with a helpful date next to it. We're detectives who showed up 100,000 years too late. The body completely dissolved, trying to rebuild the victim from the few faint clues that didn't disappear. There are basically 4 of them, and the first one is strange. It starts with one family. In the 1990s, researchers in London began studying 3 generations of a single family. In the published work, they're known only as the KE family to protect their privacy. And about half the members across those 3 generations shared something odd. They struggled to speak, not because they weren't bright, they were, but with the physical act of it. Controlling the lips and tongue, shaping the right sounds, and, strangely, with grammar itself. Things like adding an S to make a plural, which the rest of us do without ever thinking about it. For years it stayed a mystery. Then, in 2001, geneticists narrowed it down to a single typo and a single gene. 1 letter out of 3 billion. They named the gene FOXP2, and the newspapers, breathless, immediately called it the gene for language, which was a stretch. There's no one gene that hands you Shakespeare. But FOX2 turned out to be deeply tangled up in the brain circuits that run speech. And then came the part that stopped people cold. In 2007, Svante Pääbo's team at the Max Planck Institute managed to pull DNA out of a Neanderthal bone, and they checked FOXP2. It was the human version, the same one. Identical? Sit with that for a second. The Neanderthals, the species we love to draw as knuckle-dragging grunters in a cave, were carrying the same speech gene you used to order your coffee this morning. Which means the genetic groundwork for language could be far, far older than our own species. But a gene is only a blueprint. You can have the full set of instructions and still be missing the hardware. So this is where it gets interesting, because now we have to look at the actual plumbing. There's a small bone in your throat shaped like a horseshoe. It's called the hyoid, and it's a real oddity. It's the only bone in your body that doesn't connect to any other bone. It just floats there, held by muscle, anchoring your tongue and your voice box. It's essential for speech. It's also tiny, fragile, and completely alone, which is why it almost never survives in the fossil record. Almost never. In Kibera Cave, in what's now Israel, archaeologists uncovered a remarkably complete Neanderthal skeleton, roughly 60,000 years old. When the team described it back in 1989, there it was, the hyoid bone intact. They held it up against a modern human hyoid, nearly identical. So read that again. The exact piece of anatomical hardware you need to physically make speech was already installed, fully modern in a different human species 60,000 years ago. The gene was there. Now the hardware was there too. Now here's where it gets stranger, because having the parts isn't the same as being able to play them. At some point in our evolution, something happened to the human throat that happened to no other animal. Our larynx, the voice box, dropped. It sank far lower in the throat than you'll find in any other creature. The researcher Philip Lieberman built much of his career on what that means. A low larynx is like adding a long echo chamber above your vocal cords. It hands you a huge, precise range of sounds. It's the reason you can hear the difference between beat, bit, bait, and boot. But evolution never gives a gift for free. Your lowered voice box means your airway and your food pipe now cross at the back of your throat. And that's exactly why you, and pretty much only you out of all the animals, can choke to death on food that goes down the wrong way. No other mammal is built this badly for the simple act of eating. So sit with that trade for a second. Somewhere back in time, evolution weighed the daily risk of choking against the power of clear speech. And it picked speech. Talking was worth dying for. That tells you how useful it was. And here's the part that feels almost unfair to every other animal on the planet. They were already halfway there. We just crossed the line first. Listen to this. Out on the plains of Kenya, 2 researchers named Dorothy Cheney and Robert Seyfarth spent years quietly recording vervet monkeys. And they found the monkeys didn't just shriek when they got scared. They had specific calls for specific dangers. One sound meant leopard, and the whole troop shot up into the trees. A different sound meant eagle, and they dove down into the bushes, which is the wrong move for a leopard, but the right one for a bird. A third sound meant snake, and they stood up tall to scan the grass. Different words, different meanings, different responses. And they're not alone. Once you start looking, the animal world is full of this. Khan Slobodchikov spent decades on prairie dogs, of all things, and found their alarm calls seem to encode not just predator, but the size, the shape, even the color of whatever's coming. A description, not just a scream. Honeybees coming back to the hive do a looping waggle dance that tells the others the exact direction and distance to the flowers. Dolphins use signature whistles that work a lot like names. None of that is full human language, but it's clearly the raw material. Symbols, meaning, reference, the building blocks were lying around in the animal world for millions of years. We didn't conjure them out of nothing. We were just the species that finally snapped them together into sentences. And now the honest part, because a good story has to slow down and tell you the truth. For all the gene, the bone, the throat, and the monkeys, nobody can actually give you a date. Some serious researchers argue true language is only about 50,000 years old, and tie it to the sudden burst of cave art, jewelry, and burial. Others push it back 500,000 years or more, to that shared ancestor of us and the Neanderthals. The credible estimates span nearly 2 million years. Anyone who hands you one confident number is overselling it. We're still reading shadows on a wall, and we know it. So let's put the date aside, because the date was never the real prize. Here's the part that changes how you see your own mouth. Almost every animal signal we just talked about, the vervet calls, the prairie dog descriptions, the bee dances, shares one invisible ceiling. They can only point at things that are here, right now. The leopard in front of you, the flowers in that direction, the danger happening this exact second. They're trapped in the present tense. You're not. And that's the whole game. Right now, with nothing but vibrating air, I can drop a thought into your head about an ancestor who died 2 million years ago. I can make you picture a Neanderthal throat bone you've never seen. I can describe a leopard that doesn't exist in a place you've never been. on a day that hasn't happened yet. Your language can talk about the past, the future, the imaginary, the flat-out impossible. It can describe things that are not and never were and never will be in front of either of us. Linguists have a name for this. They call it displacement, the ability of language to point at things removed from the here and now. And as far as we can tell, in its full form, no other species on Earth has it. The monkey can scream leopard. Only the human can say there might be a leopard tomorrow, down by the river, so let's not go there. Remember what happened to your brother. Read that last line again, because everything is hiding inside it. A warning, a plan, a memory, a story handed from one mind into another. That's how you build a tradition. That's how knowledge outlives the person who found it. The willow bark that eases pain, the safe path through the mountains, the face you should never trust, none of it dies with the one who learned it anymore. It gets spoken forward, down the generations, an unbroken chain of voices reaching all the way to the words coming out of your device right now. We didn't just learn to make sounds. We learned to beat time with our mouths. So zoom back out to your morning, to those 4 words falling out of you at the ceiling before you'd even thought them. I don't want to. You treat that as nothing. It's the most ordinary thing in the world, talking so automatic you'll do it 16,000 times today and remember almost none of it. But sit with what it actually is for 1 second. Behind those 4 lazy words sits a gene old enough to predate your whole species. A floating horseshoe bone in your throat. A voice box that drops so low, it's willing to let you choke just so you can be understood. And a power no other creature on this planet has ever fully held. The power to reach across time and set a thought whole inside another mind. Every animal out there is still shouting about the leopard in front of it. You're the one creature that got out of the present tense. Your great-great-great-grandparent 1,000 times over, stood in tall grass and wanted badly to say something, and couldn't. The sound just wasn't there yet. And every word since, every story, every warning, every I don't want to muttered at a ceiling, has been there wanting, finally arriving. You're the latest voice in a chain that hasn't gone quiet for 2 million years. So go ahead, say something today. Somebody waited a very long time for you to be able to.